Welcome back to the BCA podcast. And this week I have a guest that I'm actually really excited about having on. I've been following him for a while. I don't know if it's been years on Instagram, but Nick Campagna, see, I told you I'd mess it up, is with us today. He's the director of sales and marketing for Woodman Arms. He's also a tracker. He's a registered Vermont and Maine guide, and you're a veteran too. Did I see that, Nick?
Yep.
What branch did you serve with?
I was in the Army National Guard.
Nice, nice. My family was all Army, except for me. I'm the only one who didn't serve. So
That's all
I have
right.
my dad was New York National Guard and during Vietnam, and my brother was Army during Bosnia. Was down at Fort Stewart, and grandfather and great grandfather both served in the world wars. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I
go
went
ahead.
Army. I went Army and did sniper school and kind of worked my way through things, and I ended up being an instructor at the Mountain Warfare School, which is
Really?
that's run by the Vermont Guard too. So
Wow.
um, yeah, I got to do a lot of cool stuff.
So can you shoot?
A little bit.
Well, thanks for coming on. I know we're just a little podunk podcast, but to have somebody of your caliber, no pun intended, is it's a huge honor. I was thrilled to finally get to meet you in person in Harrisburg. You guys were just wandering around with coffee one day, and I'm like, "That's Nick." So, and I think I might have recognized your fiance before. That's probably how I picked up that it was you. But
That's pretty much what we do. We just wander around with coffee. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of our thing.
we have our drug of choice, I guess.
Oh,
Did I
I've
lose?
had
Oh,
I've
there
had
you go.
6 cups of coffee today, so yeah, that's mine for sure.
Whatever it takes to keep you awake.
Yeah.
Are you still there?
I am. Yeah, you were kind of glitched there for a minute.
Yeah, there's going to probably be some editing involved. So, with all this rain we're getting, there's been some issues. So I just switched Wi-Fi. So
Oh, okay.
sorry about that. Um, all right. Well, Nick, let's jump in right from the start. Tell us about Woodman Arms.
So Woodman Arms is a small firearms company, Southern New Hampshire. I say firearms. We make muzzle loaders, but there's always the possibility of a center fire in the future. Just really well made. We don't make a lot of guns, but it's a really well made muzzleloader. We started out with the G1, Patriot G1, and then it went to a G2, and now we're on the G3, which is a smokeless ready muzzleloader right out of the box, guaranteed sub MOA. It's all 416 stainless. Everything's machined. We mostly use a McGowan barrel blanks. They come in, we contour them. Everything gets shipped out and gets nitrided, so that they're about as corrosion free as you can ask for. And like I said, you can shoot. You can, if you really hated your gun, you could shoot, pellets or original black powder. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But we really recommend Blackhorn 209 or smokeless powder if it's legal. Uh, that the guns are amazing. I mean, I shot them before I worked for the company. That's kind of how I got involved. I was just volunteering for free and, shooting the gun, hunting with it. And, Mark needed some digital content done basically, and I was like, hey, I'll help part-time or whatever. And so it's been a few years now, kind of worked my way up, obviously. Harrisburg for 11 days or whatever that was. And yeah,
Long haul.
we go to a bunch of shows. We always go to the hunt stocks.
Mhm.
We will be going to the new one this year in Wisconsin, so that'll be interesting. Try to get the guns out there a little bit. But Yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't know what to say. You know, a lot of guys, they're like, oh, it's just another muzzleloader, and it's, it's oh,
Yeah.
they're so expensive. And I'm like, man, once you shoot one, then you understand what, you know,
Yeah.
I used to run a peep sight. I run a low power scope now just because my buddy had a moose tag this year. And so instead of guiding, I was his second shooter. We shot a huge bull. I shot it once with that muzzleloader and he didn't like it. I can tell you that 45 cal. Um, and I put that scope on it and I got 3 shots in one hole cloverleafed at 100 yards. And it's just a 1.5 to 5. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not, and I didn't change my bullet weights or tweak my powder at all. Mark just said, I'd probably shoot the 225 with 40 grains and 110. I'm like, all right. And they're cloverleafed, you know what I mean? So they're impressive for a muzzleloader. I always
Yeah.
tell people it's like a single shot rifle.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're underselling, honestly. Like, no knock on Night or Traditions or CVA, but Woodman, they've taken it to a whole new level.
oh,
I
it's by far the best muzzleloader out of
yeah,
the brands that are popular that aren't custom. It's basically a custom
yeah,
muzzleloader, but we make a few thousand of them a year, and
yep,
yeah, we're working on we make a bolt gun. A lot of people don't know that we make a long range muzzleloader. Um, that being said, the 22-inch Patriot G3 is good to 200 yards, no problem.
yeah,
The regular barrel, the standard barrel, the 24-inch barrel, we tell people 300 yards. I got guys coming up to me at the Harrisburg show from PA and from New York, and they're telling me they shoot 400 yards with their 24-inch gun, and it's
wow,
a 6-pound gun. It's not. It's a
yeah,
woods gun. It's not really meant for box blind sitting, and then we make a 26-inch cut rifled barrel. The standard barrels are button rifle, but we make a 26-inch cut rifled barrel, and I mean that's a 500 or 600 yard gun.
wow, wow.
You know.
Yeah, in all transparency, I don't own one yet. Like, I'm scrimping and saving, and they at one point I looked and they were back ordered. There were, but there was, what do they call them? Not glitched or knockoffs. Like, they
Oh,
had
the blems. Yeah, we have
blem
blem gun.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and so I've looked at those and thought, do I wanna just go that route or not? I mean, they're just sweet, and I'm probably a little biased that I love muzzleloader season. In New York, we have a late season, and then we have a holiday season that goes, from the day after Christmas to New Year's,
Yep.
and, those are by far I just love that time of year. You're on snow most of the time,
Yep.
um, far less people out there, it just so, I've got those out of the box couple $100 muzzle loaders, and they're fine, but it's not what I'm going for.
Yeah.
You're based in Vermont, but the company's based in New Hampshire, right?
Yep. Yeah, I work right out of home, as you can see. I'm surrounded by critters. I got eyes on me all day. And yeah, the company's the factory, if you want to call it that, the shop is Southern New Hampshire,
Uh-huh.
and one of the other guys that you'll see a lot, John, he works remote. He's in Maine. I
Nice.
mean, there's basically three of us. There's me and John's the director of engineering, and then Mark.
Okay.
And that's kind of the core group. Mark's wife does a lot in the shop. The shipping and parts
Yeah.
and all that stuff, and she helps with assembly, and of course there's machinists.
Mhm.
But as far as like getting out there in front of people and talking to people about guns, it's Mark's not even really doing that anymore. He would rather
Yeah.
be in the shop. He's got a brain like this big, and he would rather just be in the shop making stuff. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. And the quality with those smaller companies is typically is far superior anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're not mass producing, you're not, um, I prefer that smaller, almost family feel to it. So,
Yep.
but,
I agree.
um, so there's a lot of, I mean, hunting in New England it's a different animal than what we get around here in terms of a lot of people are hunting farms and, wood blocks and that kind of thing. And typically to hunt outside of New York, people have to kind of put together a big plan. Like I hunted in Oklahoma this last year, and there was a whole to do to pull all that together. You guys, it seems like anybody who's hunting in Vermont, Maine, even Massachusetts and New Hampshire, they all seem to hunt all of those states. Did you hunt multiple states this year?
This year I pretty much hunted New York the whole time. Uh,
Really?
yeah, I kind of got married to a buck, which is when I do seminars and stuff, I tell people, just because you see a big deer or you see a bunch of big buck sign and maybe a big track, or somebody shows you a trail camera picture, I always tell them, don't get married to a specific buck. You know what I mean? Like, because they're going to break your heart every time. They'll just disappear, and
Yeah.
as a tracker, it's not something that you should do. Maybe if you're in the Midwest or something and you can try and pattern this deer, but it's not what you should do here. And so, I did that and I wasted a lot of time. And then I ended up in a new area and had a couple bucks with a doe and shot the wrong one. He was laying in his bed looking at me, and I couldn't tell if it was the big one or the smaller one. And I shot him, and it was the smaller one. Of course, I watched the big one and the doe run away. But it's pretty good footage. He's like 30 yards away, laying in his bed looking at me.
Yeah.
And those are the only times when I really question, if I should have a low power scope instead of my peep sight, just because I could kind of, look through that and see his rack a little better. And
Yeah.
but it was a really good hunt. I was happy, just to get a buck down, and I figured I'd get to another state and
Yeah.
make something happen. But as it turned out, I ended up taking, Megan, obviously. I ended up taking Megan a bunch, or maybe not a bunch, like 3 days. And I think her and I saw 3 bucks, in 3 days of tracking, and two of them were totally dead. You know what I mean? They were
Yeah.
for an experienced tracker, they were totally dead. She just had some trouble, and it wasn't really her. It wasn't her skills, or
Right.
it was a gear issue. The first day she didn't wear her glasses because she doesn't normally wear her glasses when she hunts. She normally sits and she can see the movement of the deer,
Mhm.
and like her eyes aren't that bad. So then when she looks through the scope, it's a much clearer image for her. So she didn't wear her glasses, and it was kind of foggy and a little misty. And we got a buck, 50 yards away in the fog, 130 inch Adirondack buck just standing there looking at us. We were tracking him, and she couldn't see him. And I mean, he stood there for minutes looking at us,
Wow.
and I couldn't get her on him. I was trying to like help her point the gun. I kept like reaching over, and I'm like, he's right there, and she couldn't see him. And then he finally turned and he started walking broadside, and that's when she could see him.
Yep.
And then I was like, well, it's going to happen now. And then he stopped. And when he stopped, she couldn't see him again,
Oh,
just
no.
without her glasses, she had a super hard time, picking him
Yeah.
up. So then she really didn't want to go after that, because the gun that she has, it was a gift. It wasn't something that she picked out that she was comfortable with.
Yep.
And it was a gift, and she got it, quite a while ago. I think, maybe 5 to 10 years ago. And it's kind of heavy, and the stock is a little too long, and it's got a scope on it that's way too big for her. And it's kind of a cheaper scope. So we learned about our gear, and she really didn't want to go after that, because she's like, well, I know that I have to wear my glasses now, and I know that my gun's not ideal. And I'm a gun nut, obviously, being a sniper in the Army, and I've always been into guns since I was a little kid. And so like I believe that there is a big difference between a
Mhm.
$200 or $300 Vortex and
Yep.
eight or $800,000 Leopold. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
There just is a difference, no matter what anybody says. So I I tried to explain to her that we could get lucky again, and I convinced her to go. And we ended up seeing 2 bucks that day. We jumped one really close, didn't really have any shot at him. Nice buck though. Nice 8-pointer. I mean, you can see I have the GoPro over my shoulder, and you can see in the GoPro video the buck clear as day get out of his bed and bound, and you can just see this one antler.
Wow.
And then, 20 minutes later, we had a basket rack, 2.5-year-old buck, 80 yards away, broadside, just looking at us, and she couldn't make him out standing there,
Yeah.
and so it was difficult. We learned a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
She did about tracking and about gear, and I did also about trying to like point a deer out to somebody when you got them with you, and it was fun. We had a lot of fun, and we got some good video. And by the time we got done doing all that, there wasn't a whole lot of season left. I made it to New Hampshire for 5 days, and the first 4 days I was just trying to get away from people
Yeah.
and get into a spot where I could. It seemed like everywhere I wanted to go, there was either a bunch of people or there was no bucks worth following.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of snow in the mountains, so the deer were, they were quite a bit lower. And then the very last day of the season, I found a wicked buck, and I got on him, and it was a little crunchy. I jumped like a 2.5-year-old buck right away. I could have shot him, but I just wasn't too interested, and stayed on that big one. And I ended up catching up to him like 40 yards away, broadside, and he had a doe all day, and I can see him broadside 40 yards, and I can't see his head, and I just see this huge body. I know it's the buck. I can see tarsal glands. I can see everything, and I'm like, I know that that's him. Like, but you gotta be a Boy Scout, and
Yeah.
wait to see the headgear. And he bounded off, and when he bounded off, I still couldn't see his antlers because he went straight away.
Uh,
And he took about 4 bounds, and he was gone. And as soon as he was out of sight, the doe bounded across below him, and I could see that was the doe. And I'm like,
so
so
close.
it's just the way it goes. The year before
Yeah.
I shot 3 bucks, 2 good ones, and a younger one in the Adirondacks. But some years you're on it, and some years you
Yeah.
get some lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. It's especially hunting that style like, as a tracker. I mean, it's feast or famine. There's especially in the Adirondacks, at least my experience has been, there's times we go up there and you won't see a deer, for days. And then there's times you see that, out of nowhere, there's that buck and you're like, what in the world? How did he get here? Kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then you spend the rest of the day tracking them and you, it's such a vast wilderness. It's hard to, they can just keep going and it's brutal. But
Oh yeah. That's what I like about it, though. Personally, that's
yeah. Yeah. How many do you keep track of your miles? How many miles do you think you put on this year tracking?
oh, for the whole season. No, I don't.
No. But
No,
daily, you think you're averaging 10, 20? What do you think you're
I think people overestimate, or
Yep.
or sometimes maybe I think that people do make up mileage. I think that they
Yeah.
do lie about how many miles they do, but
Oh, I'm sure.
I also think they guess, and they just over guess.
Yep.
You can do it. You'll do a lot more miles looking for a buck track on foot than if you're actually tracking a buck.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Usually, you know what I
Yep.
mean? I've gone all day before and gone 6 miles on a buck track, but then you hit the road and it's 5 miles back to the truck. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's not always in the woods is your
Yeah.
mile, but it's fun. I mean, I'm 6 to 12 miles a day, probably something like that.
Yeah. I I
Usually,
I would guess that's probably pretty accurate, you know?
yeah, and it's usually more in the Adirondacks. I would
Yep.
say it's towards the higher end, and I'm not, I'm a diehard, right? I'm hardcore when the time is right. If
Yeah.
it's bare ground, I might not even go in the woods. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like I'm pretty apt to just stay home and work on the computer, or I really
Yep.
try to bide my time. That being said, if there's snow, there's snow.
That's
That's
it's time
different.
to go.
But yeah, most of my best bucks I've killed. Um, this one right here
Mhm.
and that one. Well, this is 100. You can't.
Yeah, flip us up. There you go.
Yeah. So that's 143-inch 10. Doesn't look like
Wow.
it. And that's 136-inch 8. And it was super crunchy for both of those.
Yeah.
And actually this one it was too, but he's not. This is the one that was on YouTube last year, the river buck.
Yep.
He died in that river, but it, a lot of my biggest bucks were, on crunchy snow. I killed a 160 in New Hampshire, 160 and an 8. It was 226, and it was crunchy, but it was pouring rain. So by the time we even got in the woods, it had softened up, and there was nobody out.
Yep.
It was in a part of New Hampshire where there's guys everywhere, and there was not a soul out that day. I mean, pouring rain. The snow had been super crunchy the day before, so everybody had just kind of thrown in the towel,
Yeah.
and it was a Sunday. So usually on a Sunday, you'll get a lot of the Maine guys will come over to New Hampshire. So usually it can be busier on a Sunday, but yeah, it just worked out. It just worked out really well.
Did you say 226?
Yeah, he dressed 226.
Unbelievable.
He looked way bigger, actually. He
Yeah.
was actually real bony. You could see his hips and his backbone. He was just a freak deer. I bet during bow season he was probably 260. He was
Wow.
just ridiculous.
Man, that's a great deer. That is a great deer. I saw too. You posted about the river buck, the taxidermy on Instagram.
Yeah,
What an amazing job they did with that.
yeah, that's him right there. Yeah, he
That's
asked if I wanted to like try and repair that, and I told him I was like, no, just paint it
yeah,
the way it was.
yeah. It was really well done. While we're on it, where can people find you on YouTube? Those videos.
So I have my own channel, but I don't hardly use it anymore. Everything now goes right on It's Making Tracks.
Okay.
That's our channel. Me and a couple of buddies got most of the videos are mine, but I am doing it with a couple buddies. It's just
Yep.
And everybody's pretty much having success. It's just who decides they're going to carry a camera and happens to get stuff.
Exactly. I know when I step out, if I'm not carrying a camera, I'm probably shooting something that day. So
Yeah, oh yeah. That's every time I go shed hunting. I'm like, if I don't bring a pack,
yep.
I'll find.
Yep.
If I bring a pack, I won't find anything. It's like if I forgot my bullets to my gun, I'm definitely going to see a giant buck. You know what I mean? It's just
Exactly.
just the way it goes. Never be fully prepared. You should always seems like every time I forget my drag rope lately, that's when I shoot a buck.
Do you use a sled? Do you have, or are you just dragging them out?
Yeah, so I when I was a kid, we used to always use literally the Aubuchon hardware kids sleds,
Yep.
and that, but like a lot of those would break, if it was real cold, they would crack and break. And then we tried the jet sled, but the front of the jet sled is too steep and it
Yeah.
plows snow. So now we've got these blue sleds. A lot of times I don't go to the truck and get the sled because it's just extra mileage.
Right.
But if I'm going back the next day or whatever, sometimes, we'll get a hold of a buddy and be like, hey, where are you? Are you out? Because go to my truck and get my sled and come in here and,
Yeah.
and we've got these blue sleds now. They're pretty expensive. They're like 80 or $100, but they're dark blue, like blue jean colored, and they're indestructible. We've used them a lot, and they're really good.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the brand is of the thing, but they're so good that I think I've got like 4 of them right now.
Huh. When we were hunting more towards Lake Bonaparte, so we're on the western side of the Adirondacks. We had this guy who would hunt with us, and he made all these one-wheel deer carts. So it looks like a stretcher on a single motorcycle tire.
Yeah,
And he'd hide them all over the place. He would just bury them, and then or under leaves and sticks. And okay, we're a mile from that. We'll go get that one, and you get the deer cleaned out and that kind of thing. But those days are gone, and hiding that stuff on public land probably wasn't whatever. But
yeah.
so, yeah,
The one-wheeled car is pretty popular. I've found a few in the Adirondacks, and we actually had one we used for a long time, but we ended up, my dad's buddies at camp, they've got the two-wheeled ones now because you can get them out on your own.
Yeah.
That one-wheeled one was kind of tough to like get it balanced if you're on your own. It
Yeah.
was a pain.
Yep. Yep. Um, yeah, I have a buddy who videos for or did video for Meat Eater for the Back 40. And
Okay.
he's moved on now. He's doing videography and photography for like lacrosse, but he and another guy have teamed up to come up with like a battery operated one, but I'm not sure. I think it's going to be more tested down south. Like I know the hunting public has tested with them, and I just don't know how it would do up in the mountain areas where we're at. But it'd be interesting, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine spending that kind of money. I tend to be a little bit of a minimalist with that stuff, but
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's half the time I don't even go get the sled when it's in the truck.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And if there's not
Grab
a
a rope.
trail, it's not much good.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I keep just a piece of webbing that I loop around the legs and the head, and I just keep it in my vest, and it's a lot lighter than a sled or a cart, so
Oh, yeah.
little little more manageable. But
Yep.
so Nick, where did you grow up, and how did tracking get into your blood?
So I grew up in Vermont. From the minute that my dad could throw me in a sled and bring me ice fishing, he was bringing me ice fishing.
Yeah.
Uh, Literally so small that I would just sit in the sled and he would like put a hole right next to me and I could jig from the sled.
I
And
see
then,
you're carrying that on with your kid. You're doing the same.
oh yeah, yeah,
So
and we have a ton of fun, and I try to, Megan tells me that I'm hardcore. Um, but I'm hardcore in both ways. I'm hardcore in the fact that like I'm not gonna let you, if you're my kid, I'm not gonna let you be a weakling and feel sorry for yourself. And
yep.
I'm gonna push. I'm gonna because when you're a kid, you feel like you have limits, and you don't know what they are. And I feel like it's good for kids to see that they can do more than they think that they can do. Even
Yeah.
me and my boy, we just went shed hunting the other day. We did 7.5 miles in the mountains looking for deer antlers. After mile 4, he was like, Dad, can we go? Can we go back to the truck? And I'm like, no, bud, you're good. Like,
Yep.
I'm like, we'll just take it easy. And, and we push through and we have a great time. And so I am a little hardcore when it comes to like no pain, no gain. Like, let's
Mhm.
do this, type 2 fun. But I'm also hardcore in the fact that I am just fun. I try to have a lot of fun with the kids. There's a
Yeah.
lot of days when you're wore out and you're not feeling like it. But they're only going to be kids once. So
Yep.
I try to. I've been on that trampoline with those kids more times than I can count, and even when I wasn't really into it, you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
yeah, I try to get them out and do all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. You know what I mean. We'll trout fish when we can. That's what when I was a kid, my dad would get out of work and he'd come grab me and we'd drive up into the mountains and we'd catch little tiny brook trout. If we caught
Mhm.
an 8-incher, it was a good one. Uh, but you don't care when you're a kid, so I try to do
Right.
the same thing now. I try to, we'll go
Yeah.
out in like May or June. We might get done turkey hunting in May. And we'll zoom over. There's a little pond down the road here. We'll zoom over there, and you can catch all the 8-inch crappie that you want. And then we'll jump back and we don't even keep them. We'll jump back in the truck and we'll go roost turkeys, or even if we're
Yep.
not hunting the next day, we might be tagged out and we'll still go look for birds. Or, we're shed hunting in the summertime. We're going up new mountains, checking hiking trails and putting cameras out for moose. And,
Yeah.
we just try to stay busy and
That's
do fun
cool. And
stuff.
it keeps them active, keeps them off video games, and keeps them,
Yeah.
it's stretching. Man, that's, I don't think we have enough people saying that loud enough that, about, a kid thinks they have limits and you're helping them see, you can push beyond that. You can and that's going to be so good for them in the future,
Yeah. But yeah,
to
there's a lot of
realize.
people that will just let their kids watch YouTube all day or,
Yeah.
play video games all day. And, when my kid watches YouTube, he watches hunting or shed hunting or fishing or,
Yeah.
that's what he watches when he watches YouTube. So, it's not like he doesn't watch that stuff and it's not like
Yep.
he doesn't play video games, but, it's as
Yeah.
often as we can be outside, we're outside. And I
Yep.
love that when he gets on the TV, like he's watching YouTube right now, there's no school today. And
I love it.
we went to the diner this morning and had breakfast, and then we went to the gun shop and get him some ammo for turkey season. And he's out there watching shed hunting right now. He's pumped. So
I love it.
yeah,
So your dad started you ice fishing early, real early.
yep, yep. And then I was just following him. It was just we used to. He had a little small aluminum boat tiller steer when I was a kid, and he used to torture me. He'd bring me out there and troll salmon, and it would be cold and windy, and just like I hated it. It was boring, but like for some reason, I guess, just being out there with him and just doing that stuff, it
Yeah.
was fun. And he always took pictures, and we used to keep fish. So I liked eating the salmon and browns and Lakers every once in a while. And we have awesome pictures from when I was a kid. I got a Mickey Mouse life jacket on. I'm holding the big salmon up. Um, it just kind of snowballed. You know what I mean? Like then
Yeah.
and then we're trout fishing in the summer and we're bass fishing and we're eventually I got hunter safety
Yep.
and we went turkey hunting and deer hunting and all my dad and all of his buddies they all hunted in the mountains. None of them are sitters. They're all trackers and still hunters, and they hunt public land in the mountains or timber company land if
Hmm.
you can, depending on where you are. And they're all really good hunters. They don't do social media. They're all like early 70s now.
Yeah.
And if people saw the deer that they had killed, they would shake their head. They're not into bragging and having social media and all that. And
Yeah.
um, the plan for me someday is going to be to write a book on those guys and their stories.
Yeah.
And I'm debating about doing like a deer camp film
Yep.
this coming year, and just getting those guys at camp. And like the early muzzleloader in the Adirondacks, right? We're not
Yeah.
too serious yet. It's a little
Yeah.
warm, but I think it'd be really cool to have those guys there and set up the good camera and have them tell stories, like some of their best hunting stories, and just kind of make a film. And I could put some of the pictures from, because we have like back in the day you used to take these pictures on a film camera and you'd like bring it to, we used to have a place here called Photo Garden, or you'd bring it to
Mhm.
Walmart and they'd develop the film. And like we'd always flip through the pictures after, and it was so cool. And I kind of hate that we don't do that anymore because we have
Yeah.
these things. But it's, to me, I think it's super cool, and I think it would make a really fun thing for people to watch.
I think so. I've thought um, over the years. I mean, I've had the opportunity to be in a number of different camps, and I just think the lore of camp, of deer camp, just there's and they all are the same, but they're all different. They each have their different flavors to them, and they have their different stories and the humor that took place, and it just that I eat that stuff up. And maybe I'm just an old soul or nostalgic, but I'd watch that in a heartbeat. So
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you wouldn't, you, you probably wouldn't get very many views at all on YouTube, but
no,
it would be awesome.
yeah,
Um, for those of us that like went to deer camp
yep,
and had that experience, it would be awesome to watch. Like I know there's some big deer camps like in the mountains in Pennsylvania,
hmm,
and I don't know anything about the mountains. I've been down there to look for elk sheds and stuff, but like I think it would be super cool if somebody did that down there. I would watch it.
yeah,
I they do
yeah,
a lot of I know they do a lot of deer drives and stuff like that, and like I would watch it. It would be great to see the stories that other people have from
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
and years and years of deer camp.
Yep, absolutely. We one of our traditions at our camp is night before season opens, we watch Escanaba into Moonlight, which is just this random hunting film that turns into some weird, psychedelic trip kind of halfway through. But um, I mean, it's that same. I don't know, man. There's just something about it that pulls on the heartstrings, and like, yes, this is what it's about.
Yeah, there's a
So
lot of guys that I know that watch like the Benoit DVDs,
yes,
the night
yep,
before. Yeah.
yep. Yeah, there's a name, right? I mean, Lanny and Larry, and I mean those guys. They're kind of the OG trackers. That was when I was first starting in the Adirondacks, those were the guys that I'm like, that's who I want to be. I want to be Lanny Benoit when I grow up. And
Yeah.
I've only had a couple of conversations with him over the years, and I'm not sure I could ever be Lanny, but that was the goal. So,
Yeah, it's
um,
funny. Like as a kid, I can remember as a kid, I'd be at my grandparents' house, and my mom's side of the family is huge. I got so many uncles on that side of the family, and we would go up there, and my uncles, one of them had all the Benoit DVDs, the original DVDs, and
yeah,
I was just a kid, and they would play them on my grandparents' TV, and they always had a big TV, and I was a kid, and me and my cousins, we weren't even allowed to sit on the furniture. We basically had to sit on the floor because there was so many aunts and uncles, and there was so many adults. And I can remember, like, it was probably, I'm going to say it was probably like Christmas. We would all go up there, and for some reason we're watching Benoit hunting DVDs on Christmas, but it would be like everybody would show up, and they would open presents and have some food, and then when things kind of settled down, all the adults would like have an afternoon coffee and some dessert or whatever, and this DVD would go in, and I just remember like staring up at the TV, just a little kid, and I'm watching Lanny Benoit run
yeah,
that buck so hard that it goes across the river and down over the waterfall, and
yep,
then he shoots it, and then they got to cut a tree down to get across the river, and I just watched that, and it was like looking at Babe Ruth. You know what I mean? It was
yeah,
like he was like the Babe Ruth of deer hunting. It was like this guy is a legend. Like,
yeah,
and now I know him. Now he
yeah.
calls. Now he calls me. You know what I mean? Lanny has
Wow.
my phone number, and he calls me to talk about muzzleloaders and deer hunting, and I've gotten to spend some time with him because we have some mutual friends, and because I'm with Woodman Arms, and it's kind of surreal.
Yeah.
It's a strange world for sure, but
Wow.
he's a great guy. I think you've probably heard the term when somebody says like things got Western.
Yep.
Honestly, I don't know why they say Western, because I think Lanny Benoit might have like created that term. You know what I mean? Like that might have come from him. Honestly, things got Eastern. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I think of all the times, he's taking that rig across streams and having to pull a chainsaw out of the back to continue down the road or what. I mean, there was just everything about him is legendary, that whole
yeah,
the family in general. And yeah, I kind of feel like now I'm in the presence talking to you. I'm like, this is probably as close as I'll get to talking to the legend. So it's you got hey. Um, so so your family is all trackers, and that was how you kind of grew up tracking. Then you were not a
basically my dad.
okay,
My dad, he hunted with my uncles on my mom's side, because
okay,
my dad's brothers, one doesn't hunt. He hunted a little bit like early on when he was a younger guy, and then he just kind of, it wasn't his thing.
yep,
And my other uncle, he likes to hunt, but he's more of a sitter. He likes private land, and he just, that's his style.
yep,
My uncles on my mom's side, one of them, has spent quite a bit of time in Colorado doing the public land thing for mule deer and stuff. He's been successful. He hasn't killed any giant mule deer, but some really nice bucks for public land, no guide. Um, he's a little more of a hiker and stuff, but he's been successful sitting too. One of my other uncles, he's a Boone and Crockett scorer, more of a sitter though, same type of thing. So basically my dad was like the only tracker, and he was my grandfather wasn't much of a hunter at all. My dad's father. But he took my dad and my uncles, which was the biggest thing. He wasn't much of a hunter, but he took them and he made sure that like they got out there and had the opportunity. And so basically my dad was a tracker. And when I was a little kid is when my dad met the guys that he still hunts with to this day. And they taught him pretty much everything that he knows. I think when he met them, he had shot a big spike horn, and which was his first buck. And I think he had shot, it's like a big 5-pointer. And that was it. I believe at the time that was it, and he was still fairly young. Of course, he wasn't that old when he had me, but he started hunting with those guys, and they had always hunted Vermont, and they shot some nice bucks. And Vermont's a tough place to hunt. And then they had gone to Maine, and they didn't like how many people there was and how many roads there was. And so then they had moved to the Adirondacks, and they had shot a couple nice bucks like the first couple years in the Adirondacks. And my dad and my grandfather were doing some work for them, just right local here, because my whole family's all carpenters. And so they were doing some work for one of the guys, and he's like, hey, you want to come salmon fishing? And they had a big boat, and they would go over to Lake Ontario. I'm not sure where they used to have it docked up, and my dad and my uncle went, and they really liked my dad. And they're like, hey, do you want to come hunting with us in the Adirondacks? And then, he never looked back. He hunted with them every year. I think the first year he shot a nice 8-pointer, and, he would have been, my old man would have been a lot more successful if he would have taken more time to hunt.
Yeah.
Family business, carpentry, you feel this massive weight on your shoulders to get this work done. So at the most, my old man never took a week off, and sometimes that week off, you'd have bare ground, it'd be warm, and it was terrible, but he still usually got a buck, I don't remember very many years when he didn't get a buck, and he shot some great bucks. He's got some wicked nice bucks mounted, and like this past year, we got one day of snow. The first day it snowed, he got on a buck track, and that buck was dead, and it was a beautiful buck. It's like 130-inch 10, got some character, some stickers, and so yeah, he's a good hunter, but not just being stuck with him. I used to, once I was big enough, I started going to camp, and I'm learning from all these. First, it was a Winnebago. It was a mini. We called it the Mini Winnie, this little tiny miniature Winnebago, and they would park it on like a snowplow turnaround on the side of the mountain, and there'd be like 5 of us sleeping in that thing, and they had they made like a makeshift game pole in the woods behind the snowplow turnaround to hang the bucks. And it was, like I said, it was a little not Western, but Eastern, you know what I mean? Like things were wild back then. And the heat in those Winnebagos was just a propane heater, so nothing dried out. And those guys were tough, and they shot a lot of big bucks. And then they had camp, and at some point there, after we built camp in 99, or bought the land. I think bought the land in 98, and there was 2 campers parked there in 99, and they went for 6 for 6. They all got a buck. My old man, like I said, he didn't have a lot of time to hunt because he didn't give himself a lot of time to hunt. He shot a 6-pointer. Everybody else shot a buck over 130.
Wow.
One of those bucks was like 145. It was a 9-pointer, and the other one was like 160. It was a 14.
Man.
and I was just a little kid, and there's a picture of me standing at the game pole, and I was always a Dallas Cowboys fan as a kid, America's team, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then for some reason I'm wearing a Denver Broncos sweatshirt. Somebody probably gave it to my grandma, probably gave it to me for Christmas, but I'm standing there at the buck pole with all of these huge Adirondack bucks, and it's a classic picture, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of surreal to look at it and see that that was me as a little kid. Um, but like then, once we had camp, I started going with some of the other guys.
Hmm.
Ken would say, "Hey, Kevin, you want me to take Nick today?" And so one day I'd go with Ken, and one day I'd go with Howard, and I would. So I learned everything I could learn from my dad,
That's
and then
so
I learned
good.
everything I could learn from Ken, and I learned everything I could learn from Howard, and they all have a little different style, and just super fortunate to
Yeah.
they wouldn't appreciate this, but to have a bunch of old guys to teach me the ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it wasn't just deer hunting. They threw a lot of life lessons at me and told me about girls, and they all told me. I remember as a kid, they all told me, they're like, I was probably in middle school, and they're like, well, in a few years, you'll be in high school, and once you start thinking about girls, you're not going to want to go hunting as much.
That's right.
And they were wrong. They were wrong. I made a lot of girls upset by going to deer camp.
And you're
But
probably better for it.
oh, way better for it. Yeah, like that's
Uh,
that's one of the best things about Megan. She's like, if I want to go do something, she's like, go do it. I don't care.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
just,
she'll probably write an article about it.
oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, good, bad, or indifferent. Yeah,
That's
she's
right.
gonna.
Got to have her material to write on. So,
Yep.
is there like one trick or one hint that or lesson that you got with regards to hunting from those guys that you just it still sticks with you, stands out to you, I guess is probably the better way. And if not, that's okay. I know they give you a lot as you go along, and
Yeah,
there
I
might
mean,
not be one.
I don't know that there's just one. I feel
Yep.
like I feel like it's a blank journal with just a bunch of sticky notes.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of sticky notes on the board, like, don't give up.
Yep.
Don't, if you're on a good buck, it doesn't matter if it's almost dark, don't give up, because you might shoot him with 5 minutes
Yeah.
of daylight left. Um,
It's
just lots of,
lessons that come up as you're out there probably is what like,
yeah,
I love that image of the sticky notes, like, I might not refer to that sticky note until, this moment while I'm tracking this buck kind of thing.
yeah.
Um,
And like some are more important at certain times, every situation, one lesson might be more important, like my dad and one of the other guys, Howard, they're famous for not, how do I say this? They're famous for not maybe shooting at a buck sometimes when they should have
mhm.
shot.
Yeah.
And one thing that I learned was, Ken, he's killed more big bucks than I probably ever will. And he shoots.
Yeah.
If he's got any shot, if that buck's running and he's got any shot, he shoots. And
Yep.
that's kind of always been that was a lesson that I didn't have to learn the hard way. And I shoot. If I have a
Yeah.
shot, I'm shooting. You know what I mean? And not don't give up, obviously. And one of the other things is just to be positive and just think that it can happen. If you're on a buck track and you think you're not going to get him, you're probably right. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yep.
You just got to be positive.
Yeah.
Don't get down. A lot of guys nowadays. I have one of my best friends is terrible at this, and it drives me nuts. He's a farmer, and he can't hunt as much as he would like to. But what he does is he's on social media. He's on Facebook, and he's scrolling on Facebook, and he sees all these bucks that everybody else is shooting, and it gets him all depressed, and he thinks like, oh, there's not as many bucks in the woods, and like now I got to go out there and all these nice bucks are already dead. And, if I went out the first day of the season, there was way more bucks to get. And, that's a tiny bit true, but
Right.
the worst thing you can do is scroll through social media and see everything that everybody else shot. Like,
Yep.
I swear when the season starts, your best bet is to just turn social media off.
Yeah.
Just go in the woods. You know what I mean? And
And that's a good word.
I've seen guys talk themselves out of going in the woods before, Like I said, basically all these bucks are crappy snow conditions. The amount of good bucks that I've killed on perfect snow is just about zero.
Yeah.
Like a lot of guys that I know that I'm friends with, they're looking for perfect conditions and they won't go. I mean, that 10-pointer, that 143 from Maine, it was like solid crunch. And
Mm.
that it was windy though. And every time I was putting my foot in the hole where the buck had put his foot. So I was like literally walking in his track to try and break the least amount of crust. And it was windy and I was just taking a couple steps at a time and he had dogged a doe around and I caught the doe feeding up on the side of the ridge and there he was. I see him stand up out of it. It was probably 2 minutes. I was creeping and looking and I see him get up out of his bed broadside. He just walked up behind her and I could just see this beam and this the big 8 right here that I shot. It's on YouTube, right there with the muzzle loader. That was like I would step on it was supposed to be rain. And when we got over there in the morning, it was freezing rain and the whole top of the snow was just clear ice. And when you would step and break the crust, the little pieces would shatter and they would slide across the top. So you could hear it break and it would just go. And that buck came down off of the mountain and he went into some big hemlock. And underneath the hemlock, it was a little quieter. So I just stayed positive and I was like, maybe I'll catch him in here. And he looped around in there a bunch and came out with another buck into the wide open hardwoods. And it was the loudest, but I did the same thing. I just tried to walk in the track that they had and it was still freezing rain mixed. I was wearing rain gear and I was soaked to the bone.
Yeah.
And I caught up to him. They had no idea I was there. I could see one buck. I could see like his face and the end of his beam. And I was going to try and shoot him in the head because it was like the second to last day of the season.
Yep.
It looked like a nice buck. And then I look over and the other one is just walking broadside. At the same time, I'm looking at 2 bucks. I shoot the 8 because he's a giant 8-pointer. I shoot him. He runs off and the other buck turns and runs and it's like a 22-inch wide 10 with short tines. So like 2 wicked nice Maine bucks in the same spot at the same time.
Wow.
On a day when most guys are going to just be encouraged and not go in the woods.
Yeah.
So
man,
you got to just go. You got to.
Yeah, absolutely.
He who spends the most time in the woods on tracking snow is going to shoot a nice buck tracking. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's not any secret that some of these guys, I won't mention any names, but the guys that that shoot nice bucks every year tracking, if there's tracking snow, they're out there and they're doing it. Yeah. And if you do it, the only way to get better at something is to do it.
Yep.
So if you can only track 2 days a year, good luck. I hope you're a natural because if you're not, it's going to be tough. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It's going to be a struggle. And some of these guys have a lot more time than other guys.
Yep. And that's really what it is. It's time. You got to have the time in the woods. And what I love about tracking, and I miss it because I don't get to do it nearly as much. I mean, there's a lesson in every hunt, in every track. There's a buck will teach me something different every single time. They'll do something that I don't think I've seen this before, and they're just, you got to be in the woods. You got to spend time doing it in order to learn those things.
Yeah.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said, yeah, definitely. I agree. You got to be out there.
Yeah. Is the video for the river buck, is that out now?
Yep. Yeah, that was I don't even remember. It's been probably a year or
Okay. So I asked that because I didn't wanna, uh, break any secrets. I was gonna have you walk us through that hunt.
oh yeah.
Um,
So
I mean,
it
spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it,
was
Nick's gonna tell the
yeah, if
story.
you haven't watched it, maybe you want to pause this and go watch it. But it's okay though, because you could you could listen to this and then go watch it, and you kind of, the video is over the shoulder GoPro, and trying to keep it short enough where people are going to actually want to watch this YouTube video, right? So this was days. It was days of following, I think, the same buck. I did see in that time period, I saw another buck that had a better rack, uh, and they must have had about the same size foot, because I thought that I was just kind of on the same buck the whole time, but I don't think that I was. Anyways, it was a new spot to me in New Hampshire, and I first day in there, good buck track. I had my boy with me.
Mm,
It was, I have my boy every other week, and so I had him with me, and that doesn't stop me a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like, there's snow, and we're gonna go. And right away, we had kind of a difficult time. We followed a buck, and he went down into a mess, and there was a bunch of people, and I really wasn't into it. So we went back, and we got on another buck. He went up on this ridge and crossed the ridge and went down low, and we left him. And it was older than I thought, I think, and but it was kind of the only thing I wanted to follow. You know what I mean? Like, I try to be fairly picky. So, and I'd already killed a buck in the Adirondacks, so got great video and everything. It was fun. It was a 5 mile drag from there to the truck, and so I had to bring him home, and so I had a day I couldn't hunt, and I went back and I got on that buck. I thought was the same buck. Chased him all around. My old man was in there. He got on one that was a little bigger, just a few miles down the road. Um, and I saw that buck that day, or what I thought was that buck. I go back every once in a while and I watch the YouTube or the GoPro footage. It's not on YouTube of this other one. It's just a quick glimpse, and it looks like a 10. And the river buck is right there. He was an 8, but I have a great day in there. I have all kinds of fun. The next day, I got a group of Massachusetts guys in there, and they basically surrounded me. They saw
mm,
where I got on the buck, and he went up the mountain, and it's a small mountain. And I could see afterwards, I could see where they tried to cut me off. And then he crossed the road, and they did cut me off. And I knew the area pretty well, so I boogied down the road, and I went out this skid trail out onto this ridge, and sure enough, I got the buck coming across the skid trail with no boot tracks on him, and he's moving pretty good. And I was like, well, they jumped him. So I get on him, and he loops around in the swamp, and I see some of these guys while I'm tracking him. So these guys have got him surrounded. They all got radios. I can hear them talking on their radios when they see me. So they're trying to surround me and this buck and get him. You know what I mean? And we've had some trouble with these guys in this area. My old man one day, he pulled in. Actually, I think it was this day. He pulled in there in the morning, and they were parked sideways in the logging road with a gun out the window of the truck. So it's not a fun place to hunt, but there was a lot of snow, and they were a little bit down low. So anyways, the buck has enough of that, and heads like into the actual water in the swamp. And I'm like, well, I ain't doing that today. It's like 2 o'clock. I said, I'll come back tomorrow, and I'll get on him when he's calmed down. And I get on him the next day, and he comes out of there, and he crosses the little logging road, and he goes up onto this little tiny finger, and it's smoking fresh because I had driven in there, and then I didn't cut any tracks, and I drove down and I checked 2 more spurs, and when I came back there to walk in, he had crossed. So in like a
wow.
half an hour, this buck has crossed the road. So I get on him, and he goes into the thickest, like, it literally looked like a Christmas tree plantation that somebody just let go. I mean,
Mm,
it was just like this in there, and he went in there and laid down right in the middle of it. And I come to his bed, and he's blown out of the bed, and he runs for like a half mile. He's just not having it, and starts walking, gets down, parallels the main road. Like I'm looking at houses and camps and cars going by. He's paralleling the main road. Then he turns and he crosses the main road, and he goes between the main road and this river. And he's out in there, and I jump him at like 30 yards. He comes flying out of a blowdown. All I hear is just stuff smashing. And I'm like, crap, and I run up the hill, and I can't see him. It's so thick. It's all green growth in there. It's all fir and spruce. There's literally no hardwood. And I run up, and I can't see him. And I pull out Onyx. I'm like, he's running for the river. And I pull out Onyx, and I'm like, man, he's going to run right to that river. So I run, like literally run. It was like 400 yards. I run around, and I run down the spine of the ridge, and I hit his track, and I run right to the water, and it's 110 yards across the river. And he's made it. The track goes into the river, and he's already gone. He's already jumped in the river and swam the river. And I'm like in disbelief. I'm like, there's no way that deer just did that. So I go up and down the river, and this is all on the video. I go up and down the river, and he hasn't come back out. And I'm like, well, I guess he went across. And I called my buddy, and I said, where are you? And he's like, oh, I'm getting a coffee. And I was like, of course you are. He had gone somewheres, and he couldn't find a good buck. So that's what we do. When I say that I'm laid back, and I learned that from Lanny, Lanny said in one of the videos, and everybody takes it the wrong way, but he says, you don't need to be in the woods to kill a big buck. And what he means is, don't just go in the woods to go in the woods. You know what I mean? Yeah. Wait until you find a big buck and then go in the woods. So my buddy, while it seems like he's being kind of lazy and he's just riding around drinking coffee, I know what he's doing. And so I tell him, I'm like, dude, this buck just swam the river. I said, meet me over here. So I get in my truck, and I meet him, and we drive all the way. We got to drive like 10 miles down, cross a bridge, drive all the way up. And of course I marked it on Onyx. So I'm like, he must've come out right there. So I park, and I go straight to the river. And when I get to the river, there's no buck track. Like, I haven't crossed him yet. So I'm like, all right, all I got to do is go down the edge of the river till I see where he came out. And I go all the way down. I see where he came out. He hung out by a blowdown for a minute, ate a bunch of old man's beard. You could see where he broke the limbs with his rack. Not that he has a giant rack or anything, but and he heads up, and he's headed towards this road. And I'm like, I don't think he crossed that road, because on the way in here, I was looking for tracks, and I get right below the road, like steep, right below the road. And I got a bunch of deer in front of me moving, and I can't see their heads. I don't know what they are. They don't look big, but I can't really tell what's going on. And I get up there, and there was a whole bunch of does bedded on that side hill. Well, he crossed that river, and he forgot about me. He thought he was safe. Messes with all these does, goes down the road like 300 yards, crosses that road, goes up onto a ridge, starts cutting across, he went between, there was like a big house up on the side of this ridge, crosses their driveway, their driveway is probably a half mile long. So it's not like, I don't want you to think I'm right next to houses, but he crosses this driveway, and it's not posted land or whatever. And, New Hampshire and Vermont, right? If it's not posted, you're good to go. So I'm being cognizant of that. And I'm like, man, I'm thinking in my head, he's going to bring me to houses and try and lose me. So he crosses this driveway, and I look down below, and there's a bunch of deer all bedded looking down the hill. They don't even see me. So I walk right by them. He keeps trucking, makes a loop, goes way up on top of the ridge, goes around the backside through a cut. And then he gets into a ton of deer, and I jump him again. All the deer go running, and he bails off in between this little mountain and another mountain. And there's like a big bog in there. That's in the video too. I tried to cross where he crossed, and I went almost to my waist in water, and the gun got all frozen, and I had to make a big loop around. I got on the other side. He thought he lost me again, because he only went like 200 yards, and he laid down again. and I saw him go. All I saw was the snow go flying off the trees when he ran. And I ended up leaving him. He ran after I jumped in that time. He ran all the way up through. There's like some old cuts, and they had like apple trees and stuff in them. And he ran way up through that. And I ended up seeing a ton of deer over there. I saw like 6 or 8 deer over there. And they all kind of screwed me up because I thought he was going to be right there, but it was just a bunch of does, you know. And I cut out a lot of that footage because it was just too much of it. And I hit this old camp road, and I hike out that, and I'm freezing to death now because I got sweated up doing all this. And then the temperature dropped wicked, and I was just standing still watching all these deer. So I come out and I'm froze. And the next day I was like, I'm not going back. I don't know what that buck's doing, but like, I'm not going back. And I talked to my buddy, Timmy Bolduc, that morning. I'm drinking a coffee, and I was driving around, and he's like, I think you should go back. You know, he's like, that's a good one. You know, you don't have much season left. You kind of know what he's doing. And I'm like, all right, you're right. I was like, I'm going to drive to the end of that road. And if I can find him, I'll give it an hour. And if I can find him, I'll hunt him.
Yeah.
And I drive the road. He hasn't crossed the road. But the day before when I left him, he was going to go kind of past the end of the road. And I was like, well, maybe he went past the end and he hit the river again because he made a full circle. And I was like, well, maybe he'll go between the road and the river. So I dropped down to the river. And when I dropped down to the river, there's all these deer tracks, and it snowed like a half an inch. And I got all these deer tracks in this deer trail, but I can't really tell what's what. But it looks like there's a pretty good one. And I was like, well, he might have come back in here. So I get on the trail, and the trail's going along the river, and there's rubs like this, you know, there's softwood rubs on this deer trail. And they're not fresh, but they're, you know, from that season. And I was like, well, the bucks definitely like this, you know, and I'm just kind of poking along, and all of a sudden I've got a fresher track, and all these deer had kind of milled around, and I've got a fresher track, and it's big. And I'm like, man, I think that's him. And I'm kind of looking at the track, and I take a picture of it, and I'm like, gosh, I think he's back in here. I follow that thing like 60 yards, and that buck comes flying out of his bed, and I just rip a couple shots. He's headed for the river. I mean, I'm right next to the river, and he's headed for the river, and I rip a couple shots, and I kind of like stop, and I hear the ice on the river smash, and I'm like, oh my God, he just ran in the river. Like, he just broke the ice on the river. So I run over there, and when I get there, he has done what I think. He's broken through the ice. He tried to run across because now it's frozen. It wasn't the day before. Now it's frozen. He tried to run across. He broke through. So he turned around. He's trying to get back up the bank. And he can't get up the bank because the river is like, it's deep right from shore. It goes straight down. And he can't get any traction. And I'm trying to like wait for him to get on the bank because I don't know what the law really is. I don't know if you can't shoot him in the water or if you can't shoot him swimming. I'm not totally clear on what it is. So I'm standing there like I don't think that I'm supposed to shoot him, even though I'm pretty sure that I've hit him in the, you know, if it felt like the right thing to do was to put him out of his misery, but I didn't think it was legal. So I'm standing there like I can't shoot this deer until he gets on the bank. Well, he gets sick of me standing there. And he decides that he doesn't really want to get on the bank either. So he turns, and for an hour and 20 minutes, I watch him break ice and swim across.
Oh.
And he gets where he's like 50 yards from it was 120 yards, and it was an hour and 20 minutes. And I sat up against a big dead tree like I was turkey hunting. I had my pump on my knee, and I was like, when he gets to the other side and he gets up the bank, I'm going to finish him off.
Yep.
And he gets about 50 yards from the other shore, and he just runs out of steam. He just, it's like, and of course I was just about in tears watching him because I'm like, this is not what I had planned. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's struggling hard. And I called my buddy and I said, where are you now? And he's like, I'm up by your truck. And I said, drive around. I said, I shot him. And he's going back across the river. And he's like, no way. I said, yep. I said, I'll put you a pin on Onyx. He's headed for that side. And I said, I don't know what we're gonna do. I think I'm gonna lose him. I think he's gonna die, and he's probably gonna go under the ice.
Right. Right.
And so he drives around. He gets to the other side. He calls me, and he's like, I'm hiking in here. And I'm like, all right. I said, I just called Timmy. He said he's got kayaks and a canoe at camp. Like, I'm trying to come up with a plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I decide that I'm gonna leave because I'm like, I got to go get a canoe or something. When he dies, we got to get out there right away. So I leave, and he's still alive. He's still swimming. I leave, and I ran. I unloaded my gun because I'm pretty much done anyways, and I run to the truck. You know what I mean? Like, it's a half mile probably. I didn't have much of a hunt that morning. I run to the truck, and I'm driving, and I'm almost over to that side, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go get a canoe yet or what I'm going to do. And my buddy calls me, and he's like, I just got to him. He's dead. He goes, he made it like 20 yards from shore, and he's dead. And he's not sinking. He's floating. And he's like, so I don't know where you hit him, but he's floating for now.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, unfortunately, because it made him suffer, and I hate that.
Yep.
I hit him way back, right in front of the hip. And that's why he stayed alive for so long. But the only saving grace there is that the diaphragm wasn't punctured, so he was floating.
Yeah.
So I didn't lose that deer. So we got he had a big jet sled, and he had like an ice pick for checking the ice for ice fishing, and a big rope. We tied the rope to the ice pick, and we started throwing it. We got in the jet sled and used it as like a boat on the ice. And we threw the ice pick over the deer, and we were breaking the ice with the ice pick. He was like 20 yards out there. We kept breaking the ice, and then we would throw the ice pick over him and pull on it until it hooked the deer, and we'd be able to pull him like 5 or 10 feet. And then we'd have to break more ice. And, we did that for a long time. It's in the video, and we did that for a long time. Finally, we got him close enough. And my buddy was in the boat, but he's a little more rugged guy than me. He's a little heavier. And so I ended up getting in our little jet sled boat. We named it the SS Big Buck. And I scooched out there, and eventually I was able to grab an antler, and I grabbed the antler, and he pulled the whole jet sled back toward shore, and we got him out of there. It was like, I think it was the 7th of December, and he was still like 183.
Wow.
He looked like he was over 200. My buddy thought 205. I thought 210, and I don't know. He probably lost 10 pounds just trying to swim across the river.
Yeah, no kidding. That's when things get Eastern right there.
Yeah. That's why I got him mounted the way I did with all the scars and everything, because he was all beat up from the ice from hitting his neck, and behind his ear was all rubbed raw.
Wow.
Because it was rubbing on he was trying to break the ice, but the ice was like rubbing on him, and I felt awful, but I felt a huge sense of relief that we got the deer.
Yeah.
So I got him mounted with all those battle wounds, basically.
Wow. And that's the sport of hunting, or that's the lifestyle of hunting, right? It's you're grateful that you were able to recover them, but it also means the taking of a life, and we want to do that as quickly and ethical as possible, but it doesn't always turn out that way. But man, what a story.
I had of course I had the GoPro rolling, and I called I called a few people, but I was on the phone with Timmy Bolduc, and I told him, I was like, while the GoPro was running, I almost put it on YouTube, but I decided to leave it off because I know how people are. But
yeah,
I told him, I was like, I wish I would have not even shot him. Like, you know what I mean? And then he made a good point. He goes, yeah, but he might have died in the river anyways.
Right.
You know what I mean? He goes, he tried to get away from you, and he's like, he still might have died. So
yep.
It was just one of those things where, like, I felt super helpless.
Yeah.
And I didn't want the meat to go to waste. And I felt bad for the deer because I know that he's suffering. And I've decided that I don't want to hunt that close to a big river for a minute.
Yeah. I don't blame you. Have you found out what the rule is yet? The law on shooting them?
No, but I'm not shooting him in the water.
That's
No,
probably a good thing.
that was 2 years ago. And this past year, I made the decision that I wasn't gonna even hunt near the water. So I didn't really
Yeah.
have a that wasn't gonna happen anyways.
That's probably wise. So,
Yeah.
well, Nick, this has been awesome. I've already, I told you an hour. It's an hour and 15 minutes now as it is. So,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you
all.
so much. Yeah, this is I just love hearing you tell the stories, and it puts the fire back in me to make sure, okay, I need to get back up into the Adirondacks again and do some more tracking. And it's a different style of hunting, and I absolutely love it. I got
Oh
to
yeah.
probably lose some weight.
Yeah, I mean, one of the coolest parts for me is like I was never, I hated books when I was in school. I didn't want to read, and
Mhm.
when you're in school, they get like mandatory book reports, and you got to read these books that you have, you know, zero
Yeah.
interest in, right? And as
Yep.
I've gotten older now, it's like we have a camp in the Adirondacks, and I find all these old hunting books just awesome. There's Bob Olinskis, Robert Olinskis. He's got a
Mhm.
bunch of books on the Adirondacks and different parts of the Adirondacks, and
Yeah.
the old school hunters and the deer drives, and all this cool stuff. And I just find it fascinating now.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of books that are just like history of the Adirondacks that are not
Yeah.
hunting books per se, but they talk about the hunters and the trappers and the fishermen, and
Yeah.
it's really cool. And then you get back into some of that country, and you're like, man, who was here before me? You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Right.
and there's a lot of places in the Adirondacks where there's basically people never. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, the farther I can get into those places, actually, the more comfortable I feel. I
Yep.
am not. I'm not a city guy at all. Um,
Yep.
I live
Makes
way
you
too close.
understand, like, appreciate French Louis and Noah Rando, and I
Yeah.
don't know if you've Foxy Brown. He's a little less known, but his story, you should read that book if you can find it. He thought he killed a man in a bar in Boston, and so he ran to the Adirondacks, hid out for 20 years as a hermit in the Adirondacks, and was a hunting guide. And before he died, he went back to Boston, and turned out the guy lived. So the
Oh,
guy that he
geez.
thought he killed. So, I mean, it's a great story, but even the logging, the timber industry, the books, um, and a lot of local like authors. I don't remember who wrote it, but My Grandpa's Woods. There's just a number of books that are just fascinating. The history up there is just incredible. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
The only thing that it's lacking is they could have a few more moose.
yeah, yeah. I think we're up to about 700, but I've only seen two up there. So,
I've only
just
seen, I think I've only seen one ever, but yeah, they're there. I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah.
not very.
Do you have them in Vermont? Do they have a hunting season in Vermont
Yep.
for moose?
Yep. We
Have you
do.
guys have you taken one?
Yep. I shot one. My old man shot one in 2016 with his bow. It was, I guided him. It was 58 and a half inches. And
Wow.
then I think it was number two in the state with a bow then. And then 2016, I shot one with my bow.
Mhm.
And then I guide every year. I
Okay.
guide Vermont and Maine every year. So
Wow. That's really cool. I might have to reach out and do you guide deer as well?
I have, yeah. Yeah, I do it
Yeah.
less often, but I
Yeah.
have. It's a lot of
That's
fun.
cool.
You know what I mean? It's more so dependent on the client really than than
Mhm.
me. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
the weather and the client plays the biggest role really, because you can do a lot
Sure.
of cool stuff, but if you get hot weather and somebody can't walk more than a mile, then it's really hard to show them what there is to show them out in the big woods. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I would, I guess I don't even care about taking a deer. I would just love to learn, more. I just, the tracking world, there's so much to learn, and I'm, as much as I've done, I'm still probably would consider myself pretty new to it. A novice, I guess, is really the better way. And
Yeah,
so
there's
yeah,
always something to learn. I learn stuff every
yeah,
year. You know what I mean? Like I'm 36, and I'm sure when I'm 72, I'm gonna have at least twice as much knowledge. So I look
yeah,
forward to learning something new every year.
yep, absolutely. Well, cool. Thanks for making time available to us, and I really appreciate this, and appreciate finally getting to meet you in Harrisburg, and now getting to talk to you. This has been really cool. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for having me on.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thank you, and uh, hope. I guess there's no turkey season doesn't start for another month. Trout starts a couple weeks, but whatever you're out there doing, enjoy it, and God bless, and shoot straight.